So today I'm going to share with you a little bit about plant medicine, how some people have come to regret their experiences in taking plant medicine, how plant medicine has changed my life, and what I've learned along my journey in my use of plant medicine, but also connecting with many people from around the world, many other spiritual seekers, those that are dedicated towards their healing and awakening, and what they've shared with me I am now going to share with you because it's so ever important that this information is out there and that you, if you're interested in going further, in deepening your relationship and your experience with plant medicine, that you gain this insight and this information here now. So, also, if you're wanting to gain more practical tools, insight, and wisdom to integrate on your journey of healing and awakening, including more about plant medicine, then please like this video and subscribe to let me know that you would appreciate more of this goodness in your hearts and in your minds. So, I'm going to start here firstly by sharing how plant medicine has for myself been really helpful on my journey. However, I would also like to include that it's been helpful partly because I had a certain amount of tools and experience before diving deeper into my experience with plant medicine. So I already had a good understanding of meditation that I'd integrated into my life, and also the use of breath work and pranayama, which I found really helpful to be able to, in a sense, receive the medicine, process the medicine, and hold myself through the process of integrating plant medicine because I already had this base understanding and use of tools. Had I not had these tools, then it could have been a lot more scary, dangerous, and potentially harmful. So I encourage you, no matter where you're at in your journey, to really develop these tools that are related to a lot of yoga practices and breath work in general, to really integrate into your journey, which can also be really powerful and beneficial and provide certain benefits that plant medicine may or may not be able to provide for you. Okay, so now when speaking with people who've had a lot of negative regrets in terms of not having these tools, there's other aspects. And part of that is really mainly preparing yourself internally, being able to work through any fears that you have, firstly, to the medicine. So often we might have fears and doubts going into it, and we want to just be aware, what are those fears? Because if you don't deal with them before, it's more than likely you will have to deal with them while on the medicine journey. Those shadows, those fears, the lack of surrender and trust with the medicine will come up for you and potentially consume you. That it can be really difficult to surrender to receive the insights of the medicine. Okay, so to come back to speaking about medicine in general and sharing my experiences, it involves things like ayahuasca, peyote, San Pedro, which is peyote, or washuma actually, which is another cactus, and mushrooms have always been a big ally in my life. And of course, we could include marijuana also in this, and questioning, like, is this a useful plant medicine or is it not? Can share a bit more about that as well. But coming back to the regrets that people have in taking plant medicine, it's usually a lack of preparation in terms of also mentally preparing, emotionally preparing, but also physically preparing their bodies, not having a lot of food in their bellies, for example. Having a clean diet going into using the plant medicine really helps to receive the benefits of the plant medicine, no matter what medicine it is, really. So, also the space that we're going into. If we're in a dark, heavy space going into the journey, then we may end up going deeper, diving into those shadows, into the dark experiences and challenges. So it can become a really challenging journey for yourself, but it could be also really beneficial to dive deeper into your shadows and do that shadow work with the support of the medicine as it's being brought into the light and deepening your awareness as to what that shadow is. So it's not to say that is wrong, but something to be aware of, that the space you go into the ceremony with can affect you very deeply in your experience with the medicine itself. So to think that it's something that's going to save us if we're already in a dark space, that we're dependent on the medicine to pull us out, not always a wise suggestion, I would say, in my experience with dealing with others going through these plant medicine journeys. Okay, so the next area has to be with recognizing the importance of being in a safe environment and in a safe space. Okay, so if you're going on a plant medicine journey, you want to make sure that you have, firstly, an infinite amount of time and a container where you're either being held by another or you're on your own and able to really just free yourself to go deeper on this journey that you're about to embark on. So for myself, a lot of times I prefer actually to be out in nature, especially if it's a familiar space where there's not necessarily going to be anyone around, a place where I maybe have a camp set up, a place to sleep that's comfortable at the end of the night if I'm needing to, and really just a place to be connecting with nature more deeply, connecting with myself, and liberating myself of any internal sort of barriers that I might have. So, a lot of times, also, I feel the need and desire and the benefit of even being completely naked out in nature, integrating this plant medicine, and more so deepening my relationship to the elements of nature, whether it's jumping into the water or um, laying on the earth and being under the sun, for example, really integrating these elements and exploring different tools like breath and sound, which really help move the energies. So if it's feeling a bit stuck in the body, especially after taking the medicine, it can feel a bit overwhelming as it might be stuck within certain blockages within your body, and therefore you're needing to move that energy by using these tools of your voice, of your breath, or of your movements. Okay, so going for a walk, running, dancing, things like this can be really helpful to awaken to the full potential of these medicines as well. Okay, so in terms of being in a safe space, of course, you don't want to be close to any places where there's large cliffs and things like this where you could easily endanger yourself and threaten your life in your experience. So you want to be in a very safe environment and with safe people. I mean, the the more comfortable and safe you can feel in relation to the people around you that you're going on this medicine journey with, um, the deeper you can go in your experience. So if you're not feeling that safety or that alignment with the people you're around, then you may need to go take time and space to yourself. And it's important, if so, that they're aware that you're safe to do that and have that conversation beforehand, that you might feel the need to do this, not to worry, and develop any type of guidelines around that type of interaction in relating to others. So also, if you're having the medicine given to you from a medicine carrier or a medicine person, a shaman, that you feel comfortable and safe in relation to that person. This is one of the big things that I've heard many horror stories of women in particular going into medicine journeys with people where they didn't feel safe. And sure enough, that feeling of lack of security came back in the ceremony in whatever ways, and in some cases also related to some form of abuse, sexual abuse, or just crossing some form of boundaries that made the medicine journey even more difficult. So encouraging you to really trust in yourself and your intuition and what it's saying to you before going into these journeys with others. So the main factor on top of this sense of safety is, of course, our intention. Do we have clear intentions and reasons for integrating certain plant medicines. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not. But at least if we're clear that it's not a mechanism of escape or hoping that it's going to necessarily change our lives, but hopefully we have a very deep intrinsic calling towards a certain medicine, and that naturally we didn't need to necessarily seek it out, but maybe it's come to us in our field, in our experience, and naturally it's time to connect with and integrate this medicine or this part of ourselves. So being clear on your intention and putting that into the medicine is part of what you will directly receive back. What you put in, you shall receive from this medicine. And be willing, of course, to surrender to however that may look for you. Whatever you're putting in may come back to you in the strangest ways and sometimes the most intense ways and yet beautiful ways. So being able to surrender ourselves often requires the death of the ego, or us facing our fears of surrender, of letting go, of dying. And it can be quite overwhelming sometimes when certain medicines kick in, or almost all medicines start to come in, sometimes quite strongly, especially if it's a strong dose, and can be overwhelming and scary for us. So we're having to really surrender our lives to those teachings and that medicine that we have chosen to integrate and relate to. Okay, so it's going to be a process of surrender often, um, into that state of nothingness to receive. So this is tends to be the second biggest challenge, uh, in terms of not having a safe space, is not feeling safe enough to surrender internally within yourself. And naturally these things will come up. Oh shit, this is happening. And the fears like, oh God, what about this? What about that? Because there really are so many programs around plant medicines, or as we've been taught, around drugs, that they're dangerous. And so these fears come up partly because of this program and this idea that plant medicine is dangerous. Now, as a person of faith personally, I trust that God or Creator has placed these plants, these medicines here for us to benefit from. And if we are able to honor those plants, then they will honor us in return. So it's really a matter of developing healthy relations with the plants. And so sometimes I would suggest possibly a smaller dose to connect with the essence of a medicine before going into a stronger dose or a stronger trip with a certain medicine. Now, at the same time as saying this, sometimes it can be hard to really fully integrate plant medicines unless we have a strong enough dose to go into it. So we may just sort of dance along the surface and be in a state of, am I feeling it? Am I not feeling it? I'm not sure. And never actually go into the experience, partly because we haven't developed the connection, a deep enough connection or understanding, to recognize the feeling and to be able to go into it further. So in some cases, we might need a fairly strong dose to actually connect with the medicine, and therefore have to really surrender to that. So it's different for all of us and depends on what you're feeling called yourself, or what maybe somebody guiding you is able to tap into and feel, okay, it feels like maybe a small dose, maybe a high dose, a strong dose. And it's always person to person, depending on where they're at in their life in many different ways. So important for you to know and trust in yourself and what's best for you. I encourage you that more than anything else. So honoring the medicine is, of course, not just a matter of being clear on our intention, but also learning to have a balance of integration and receiving the medicine. So you can really notice this with certain medicines and for certain people, depending on different types of medicine. Um, in our culture, typically it's the medicine of marijuana, cannabis, that really has become lost in its sacred essence and power, and overused more as a recreational substance that we develop an addiction to. And I can relate to this myself over the years, this love-hate relationship with this beautiful plant medicine, and seeing how in ways and in times it's supported me maybe to go higher and gain a higher perspective, which is often the case with a lot of plant medicines, but that we can depend upon these plant medicines to achieve this state rather than being able and willing to integrate and do the work to realign our lives based upon the information, the insights that we've received from this medicine. So, part of this integration and realization is that these medicines are helping us connect with a part of ourselves. So it's awakening this part of ourselves where we can maybe connect more deeply with our bodies or with spirit or with the earth, whatever your experience is, whatever the medicine is, that this ability and this experience comes from within us. And therefore, it's a part of who we are as humans. We have this potential and this power. And so, ideally, when we're integrating certain medicines, we're able to integrate that realization furthermore and tap into this part of ourselves more naturally without depending upon this medicine to bring us there. So, it might take us to a high state. And then from there, we want to integrate, realign our life, and build this energy within ourselves, ideally to be at that state more and more within our life and not think, oh, I need to go back there to feel this again. And then, of course, more and more seeking that form of potentially avoiding aspects of ourselves in our life to escape parts of our life that can be difficult, and more wanting to be here and not being able to be down here where naturally we might be. So these are some real concerns that happen a lot with plant medicine in terms of trying to avoid and escape the work that we're really needing to do. However, also in contrast, plant medicines can take us very deep, as I said before, into our shadows as well and support us in the shadow work that we're needing to do in our life to see parts of ourselves that maybe it's difficult for us to see, or parts of ourselves that we haven't wanted to see. And so the plant medicine has a great way often to force us into feeling these things within our physical bodies, to become aware of them in our minds as well, and also in possibly our soul, our spirit's expression. So it can take us deep into traumas that happen in this lifetime and even past lifetimes, for example, can take us into recognizing some really strong debilitating fears that we might be carrying, certain doubts, certain stories that we're carrying from our past. And it may come up in our trips, in our journeys with these medicines. So it's not something to take lightly. Plant medicines are super powerful and can really support us in so many ways, as long as I said, as long as we honor them, and more importantly, honor ourselves in what we're needing and when we're needing. So if we're in a situation that we're not feeling is aligned to take certain medicines and integrate it, it's best to listen to that. If people around you are taking it maybe casually and recreationally, in my experience, it's really important not to do that, to not fall into, oh, everyone else is, I might as well, why not? To really listen to that inner guidance and support yourself to honor yourself and trust in yourself. So these are some of the areas that I see in relation to plant medicine that are really important for you if you're wanting to integrate. And ideally, what I see happening is that the biggest concern is that we can lose ourselves within plant medicine journeys, in a sense. Like, we can start to try to relate and identify with somebody who is into ayahuasca journeys. Like, oh, I've done this many ayahuasca journeys, or this many peyote ceremonies. So we can try to fill our lack of self-worth by identifying with these things in our life and try to fill this gap of self-love that we're needing to give ourselves. Now, we can also lose ourselves within the medicine journeys and the medicine and lose track of this actual process of healing and awakening that we are here on our soul journeys for. And, you know, in ways, this is why and how plant medicine can work against us, is that we can lose track of this purpose and why we're actually here on this planet. And it's to integrate the plant medicine essentially to support ourselves, to further heal certain aspects of ourselves and awaken to these parts of ourselves in order to bring our light and our love into this world in support of others. So being able to integrate it is another thing, and being able to spread this love, spread the wisdom and insight that you gain from the medicine without necessarily needing to guide people to the medicine itself if they're not feeling called, but more so guide them further and deeper into recognizing the love that they are and encouraging them to express this love and this light and recognize the great purpose that we live here in this lifetime. So here is a quick understanding. I hope you gained something from this. And of course, as I shared, please subscribe so you can receive more. Like this video so that I can continue to spread this insight, this guidance, this wisdom as we integrate all the medicines of this earth on this journey, which is so special that here now in this lifetime, we have a chance to not only integrate the many diverse teachings and ancient knowledge of this planet, but also the many plant medicines that are here to support us on our journeys to awaken beyond this physical reality to this truth of beings, of spirits. So we are able to bridge the heavens and the earth here now with the love that we are. So enjoy, because you are, my friend, magic.